just need to have good designs, happy customers, and that's been our goal from the beginning. We have not changed.
How do you make sure that the business stays healthy at the end of the day, as well as, of course, making sure that these systems work?
Since the hybrid all-in-ones have come out, that has been revolutionary. It's changed how we design, of course. Tariffs are an issue. The ITC going away is an issue. So we're always in the game. We know we stay up with the latest technologies. Most of my customers are very happy with their systems. They perform well. If they don't, we're going to go figure out why and fix it.
All right, welcome back to the Solar Surge podcast. If you're new to the Solar Surge podcast, on this program, we meet with the top CEOs and the top thought leaders in the solar and energy storage space. Now, this morning, I'm joined by a special guest, Scott Hunt. Many of you may already know him as Engineer 775. He's got a huge YouTube channel, Engineer 775, and he is the co-founder of Practical Preppers. So, Scott, it's really great to talk to you again. Welcome to the Solar Surge podcast.
Thanks a lot, Joe. We're finally doing this. We've talked about it for years.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it has been a tumultuous last couple of years in solar, Scott, and I know you do a lot more beyond just solar, just, emergency preparedness in general. But, the past couple of years in the solar industry has been very tumultuous. We've seen a number of ups and downs, whether it be with tax credits or potential tariffs. Now it looks like we have some closure on the issue of tax credits. But before we talk about current events in industry news, I'd like to, share with a little bit your background with the audience, because you, like myself, first got into solar because of an interest in emergency preparedness and resiliency. Whereas, we've seen a lot of people that just got into the business because they think they can make a lot of money fast. But Scott, if you would take about 5 minutes or so and just kind of walk us through your solar journey and your background with Practical Preppers.
Appreciate that, Joe. Yeah, so we're not really a solar company, though we've backed into solar in the last 5, 6, 7 years. With emergency preparedness, homesteading, whatever you want to call it, that's how we started. And it was more on getting food and water and some basic small power plants, small electricity solutions for folks so that they could be able to mitigate any type of threat coming, whether it was an EMP or, ice storms. It really didn't matter. We didn't focus on the actual problem, but focused on solutions. And so I began to do a lot with water and moving water, because a lot of people had power, but they didn't have a sustainable water system. And if you don't have water on your property, you're not going to be able to stay very long. So that was our main focus, was water and food solutions, food storage, food production, food preservation. And so with water, I got into how to move water using old technologies from the 1700s, hydraulic ram pumps, hand pumps, every type of pump known to man to get water out of a spring, out of a well, out of a rain cistern. And then that led me into solar water pumping, which I fell in love with because it became the most efficient way to move solar. And again, my goal was to never use a battery. So I started off as anti-battery because I saw batteries as the nemesis or the weak point in the solar industry. And so we did a lot of PV direct, which led me from water to air conditioning to heating water. Anything I could do without a battery, I was on it. So with solar water pumping, I could move tremendous amounts of water to high elevations, produce a pressure for folks in their home, for their gardening, for their animals, livestock. And I'm like, wow, this is the most efficient thing I've ever worked with, which I'm like, let me do some more solar. So my background's mechanical engineering, so I was afraid of electricity. Just kidding. But I got into how to use solar in different ways, but I thought I could basically take a home off grid with the smallest of battery or no batteries if I could do PV direct appliances, PV direct water pumps, heat pumps, all those things. And so that was where I began in the solar industry, was starting with water projects and then getting into more and more, how do I take a homestead or a home off grid? And at the same time, the technology kept getting better and better and better charge controllers, better inverters. I was heavy on generators, gas, diesel, propane, natural gas, wood gasification. So I was doing everything I could with generators and then my PV direct solutions. But as the inverters got better, I began to adopt. I moved from the the Schneiders and the Outbacks and the Magnums into these transformerless inverters and these hybrids that could do more than I thought that they could do, and they got better and better. So that's where I am today, and that's this is I started the business in 2011, and so we've done a lot in the last 14, 15 years in this space. And so I just tell people I'm not a solar company where I'm a design engineer that looks at the entire homestead. I'm looking at your water. I'm looking at your HVAC. How do you heat your water? And how because a lot of people say, I don't know what you're talking about, Scott. I just I want to stay cool when it's hot, hot when it's cool, and I want a hot shower. So can you help me out? And so that's where we've kind of developed our strategy has been a systems design approach to a home or a homestead or a compound, whatever. So, and since COVID, a lot of opportunities have come up with people moving to the country, wanting to move their businesses. And they're like, can you run my home and my business and my future projects? And I'm like, yeah, it's so scalable now that we've been able to do that. So that's a quick background for you.
That's great, Scott. And it reminds me of what I would kind of call the good old days of solar, because like yourself, I started doing off-grid emergency backup power systems. Although I always was kind of a fan of batteries, I thought that was always kind of the central part of the system. But I remember when we first started in the installation business, people would reach out and either they were building an off-grid like survival retreat or like a hunting cabin where they had to be off-grid completely, or in many cases the homeowner lived in a neighborhood, but they wanted to take 4 or 5 critical systems off the grid, like their refrigerator, their well pump. And it was really solar powered well pumping or water pumping that then caused the need for a more of a tight integration into the home's wiring, having to do split phase power with 240 volt loads as well as 120 volt loads, and all of that. And like yourself, we used a lot of the old Schneider equipment, Outback, Magnum power equipment, to accomplish that. And we would wire these systems into somebody's home, almost like a backup generator where you could just switch over to emergency power, but we would be doing all this with solar and batteries. Anyway, Scott, one of the things I miss about those days is that, back then it seemed that everybody in the community, whether it was on the install side, the engineering side, or the customers themselves, but we were all sort of like solar or off-grid enthusiasts, people that were really into it, that believed in the technology and believed philosophically in being self-sufficient and prepared. And like you mentioned, not just with electricity, but with your own food, independent water sources. Many cases, they are homesteaders, homeschoolers as well, and people that just believed in taking care of themselves. Over the past 10 years, of course, Scott, we've had a ton of new people and new money come into the industry that's really kind of changed it a bit. Have you seen a lot of that change on your side, or have you still remained pretty much focused on the emergency preparedness, self-sufficiency community?
We've tried to stay focused on energy independence. So we very rarely get a customer that's after, an ROI or a payback period. I mean, that's a bonus, that's a benefit, but it has been energy independence. If you can take advantage of the tax credit, obviously that's awesome. So our 3 things are energy independence, that freedom to weather the storm or just not have a power bill for the rest of your life. And if you can take advantage of a tax credit, that's great. We have vehemently stayed away from any financing. So we never got into, the dealer fees, and that was at 7%, is going up to, I think you've pointed out, up to 20%. That to me I think has ruined the residential solar business. Just charging ridiculous fees. And then as you have said, the installers go out of business in 6 to 7 years, and who's left holding the bag? And we have a lot of customers who are beginning to service their older systems that have been let go. They're not working. So that's very frustrating there. So I think solar is reached the point, the technology is mature enough that solar can stand on its own. And we don't need to be supported. We just need to have good designs, happy customers. And that's been our goal from the beginning. We have not changed. And so we try to, we have never financed a solar system for anybody, and if they've gone and got financing from a bank, that's fine. That's up to them. But we've stayed away from the solar finance company, like with a passion. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as we speak right now, I know we have a video that we published yesterday that's getting a lot of views on YouTube about how the whole solar financing engine is kind of unraveling, and then the whole thing relies on being able to charge high fees at the time that the loan is made, and then being able to package and sell off loans to investment funds on Wall Street. And of course, part of that fee is used to compensate the investor with some additional return than what they get. So the thing I don't like about it, Scott, is that the homeowner is looking at a loan agreement that might say 4% or 5% interest, which sounds like a very reasonable interest rate. But then when you apply the dealer fees and add that all the extra that the investor's getting, the investor's really getting more like a 10% return. But the homeowner, in many cases, is ignorant that that's happening because all they look at is the interest rate and the loan amount. They're not really given a full breakdown on all the fees and commissions and everything else that's tacked in there.
Yeah, I think they're just looking at their payment, how it was sold. So we try to, our sales approach has always been design from a design side, from an engineering side, not from a financial side. And we always thought and still believe that the finance would follow that the financial, it just, we live it, we enjoy it. My power bill here for our business and our home would be $750, and I pay the minimum connect charge. And so solar works. And I always ask a lot of people that are skeptical, I said, well, just come here, I'll show you. And if they're within driving distance, I just give them a tour and try to show them that we do live off grid. We're not an enemy of the grid. Grid is a nice insurance policy. So if you have grid, we don't tell them to turn it off. Don't make your utility mad. It's kind of that whole prepping philosophy of being the gray man. Don't draw attention to yourself.
Don't draw attention. Yep.
And so I've got customers that still do that. They'll draw attention. And sure enough, the utility pulls their meter, and then they have to run on their systems and their generators. So we really encourage people, don't do that. But you can net zero. It's technologically, it's very easy to net zero your home today.
So, Scott, are most of your projects retrofitting an existing home to be self-sufficient, or would somebody come to you to design a brand new build with the goal of being fully self-sufficient? Like, what's your typical client look like?
It's probably 25% new construction and 75% the rest, which is retrofit. So the new construction projects can go on for a long time with projects that can take 2 years to build out. But it's nice to get a hold of the general contractor, the electrician, and put our conduits in place, have everything, all our EMT conduits from the outside in the mechanical room if they're going inside, which we'll talk about the trend to get away from going inside with the equipment to go outside. So in a lot of cases, it's been very easy, whether it's new construction or retrofit, to work from the outside and never go in the house. I know we spoke about it before. I'd like to explain that at some point. I don't know if we'll get to that, some of the technologies, but I would like to. I don't think a lot of people realize what you can do today without ever stepping inside the home.
Yeah, well, let's get into more of that. As you mentioned earlier, the technology itself has advanced quite a bit in the past 5 to 10 years. I mean, I can remember when we did some of these older off-grid systems, it looked like a science experiment in the garage. You got wires everywhere, and a lot of times we had to piece all those systems together ourselves. So you have your charge controller, your inverter, your batteries, switchgear. A lot of times these are all coming from different manufacturers. Now we're seeing more of these like all-in-one type solutions. But Scott, what's your take on the technology landscape right now as far as hybrid and battery-based systems, and what are some of your preferred brands?
Yeah, so I mean, everybody, if they see my channel, they can see my preferred brand. So thankfully, I've been around long enough where I'm a distributor for inverters and batteries and ground mounts and racking. So that has helped us as a company. But since the hybrid all-in-ones have come out, that has been revolutionary. It's changed how we design, of course, simplified, but we also know that it's scalable. Every customer I deal with, can I scale? Can I add? And so when we build a system, maybe it's with one inverter, all of our wiring, and I'm always thinking 200 amps to 400 amps that I can, even though this inverter is only going to output 50 amps, we pre-build the systems for scalability. I find no one says, give me less power. And so we design our systems to scale. It doesn't cost that much more to make this system to be able to add an inverter, add a bypass switch, add more solar, add battery. So we always go into the project knowing that they're going to come back and want more power because they've built a new shop. They've added, or the kids have come home and they need more power, or there's just so many reasons to build a system initially that to make it scalable and don't. It's kind of like just seeing what they're going to need. When I do a site visit, I'm like, oh, this is your plan. Let's build it with, maximize a single inverter, single array, single battery bank, but knowing that we're going to scale this thing maybe in a couple of years. It's fun to go back to a project like that and just be able to put another inverter in. All the wiring is done. And it's just basically adding and paralleling versus having to pull everything off the wall and rebuild it. So the inverter technology is so good. As if you watch my channel, I'm predominantly Sol-Ark. I've been with them for 10 years. They don't pay me. I just work. I just use their equipment, and we've developed a really good relationship. And I'm brand loyal to a fault, whether it's the vehicles I drive or the inverters I use. And once they treat me well, I stick with them. And that's paid off. It pays off tremendously with tech support. As I'm monitoring 250 inverters now. And so I got a lot of data from all over the country, cold climates, hot climates, humid, whatever, out in the ocean. So it's just nice. The hybrid inverter space has been awesome. And there's a lot of competition now, as you know. But I stick with what works. And when it comes to batteries, it's the Wild West. I mean, I deal with 14 different companies, and they keep improving, costs coming down, thankfully. And so a lot of times it's what battery fits for your project, what battery fits in this space. And so there's every form factor known to man today, which is great. And I have some opinions on batteries, and I have, as I do on inverters and solar, ground mounts and bifacial. So we'll get into some of the tech. The tech is wonderful. So can you do this now? I just try to give people the confidence that you can totally net zero your home. We don't do critical loads panels anymore. There's no backup loads panels. That is a thing of 5-6 years ago. So we never do that. We basically I can put electricity on every breaker. Now I might not be able to run everything simultaneously, but I can power everything you have. And that includes your chop saw, your 6-ton HVAC, your lathe, whatever your shop is. Sometimes people have a serious power load, or your EVs. And so it's fun from my perspective to be able to run anything they throw at me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that is one thing I've noticed too over the past few years is these battery-based systems are getting much, much higher capacity. I can think back to 2018 when the Sol-Ark 8K first came out, and really at the time it was kind of a first of its kind hybrid inverter because it took the inverter charger function and the charge controllers, and then put it all into one box. And then when they came out with the 15K, they integrated the whole house 200 amp transfer switch into the inverter as well, which I think really streamlined the installs. What was your experience? And is the 15K the model that you use most frequently?
Yes, it is. And it's not the 200 amp transfer switch, it's the 200 amp pass through. And that's really not a transfer switch, though they do have obviously the 1741 transfer switch when the grid goes down. But that 200 amp pass through capability completely revolutionized what I do. And a lot of people don't understand that. And they still will go back and try to buy a 12K. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Buy the 15K. You'll be so much happier. So we take a whole home approach. Like I said, there's no backup loads. And I thought load shaving was going to be the thing that revolutionized the solar industry back, talking to Savant and Lumen and Span. And I'm like, that has not been the case. Even Sol-Ark went into that, developing a grid load control, a 14 relay machine, and that never came to be. So we do not do load shaving. We have found it to be cheaper to either add an inverter, add capacity to run the whole home. And so if people really want that, or if they can live within the single inverter with a 200 amp pass through, that's covering 95% of homes. I'm able to run anything that they have. We're not compromising the home at all. We're just cutting in between their meter and their panels. I bypass a utility required disconnect and an inverter that has this crazy 200 amp pass through. So that's been going on for almost 4 years. That has revolutionized solar. And I know there's all the, the competition trying to basically copy Sol-Ark for what they came up with, and they've caught them, they're catching them, and so that's where we're at today.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I know that that's kind of what happened. The way I understood the story is Sol-Ark sort of pioneered that new architecture, and then a number of Chinese companies, I guess, just copied it and resold it. So you can see a very similar product to Sol-Ark under a number of different brands out on the market right now.
Yeah.
But it really was Sol-Ark that pioneered that architecture. Transformerless, integrated charge control, 200 amp pass through, all in one box, and
Yeah, and
yeah,
they've
no,
gone. Yeah, I mean, from starting with the 3K 10 years ago to the eights, the 12s, back to the fives and the single phase, and to the 15, and they're not done yet. They got new products coming out, so they are innovative. They just they're not as fast as some other folks seem to be of getting new products to the market. I think they're very conservative and they wait to make sure, because I've been a beta tester for them for a long time. And so I know that, I'm still running a beta 15 from 4 years ago. It was bulletproof out of the box. Now, there have been improvements to firmware and hardware on the inverter. So some people will get a bad one, or a board that can't handle much imbalance, and that gets out on the internet as a bad inverter, bad company. But I've got so much data to prove otherwise. They make a good product, and it's nice to stick with a. I just tell people bounce all over the place. When you stick with a company, you don't have to always deal with level 1 tech support. You actually have friends. when you're out in the field and you're like, I've got to get this thing commissioned, and I'm 5 hours away from home, and you can get a hold of somebody and that really knows their stuff inside. So that's an advantage. And so a lot of my customers, I do tech support for them, but if I get in trouble and there's something I don't know, some interaction with firmware or a generator that I don't know what's going on, I can get a hold of Sol-Ark and they can walk me through it. Typically, they rescue me so I don't have to do another truck roll.
sounds good. Sounds good. So, Scott, in light of some of the changes that we've seen in the past few months here, tariffs. I think the first big issue was tariffs and potentially much higher tariffs. What that would do as far as costs for imported solar components. But have you seen any impact on your business so far, or do you expect to have to make any adjustments?
Yeah, we're making adjustments. One of the adjustments was to talk to you, and because you keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the industry. So thank you for doing that. And so I've been watching your videos and just wanting to network, and because we do not know what's going to happen in 2026. Right now, our board is filled with jobs, as you mentioned. People are making the mad dash to make sure they get the ITC, and so we're going to be at capacity in no time. But what does that mean for the next year? So tariffs are an issue. The ITC going away is an issue, and so in a way, I'm hoping that we weather the storm and we don't need support. The solar stands on its own, and people enjoy not having a power bill. And people enjoy when the grid goes out, they don't even know it, because the technology has arrived to allow you to just plow through. So I'm hoping, I think it's going to shift. We might do more off-grid work in 2026 and in the future, but I think there's a lot of hybrids that we have taken off the grid in terms of they don't need the grid, to prove that we can just continue to do the same type of solar, giving people that independence and targeting their bill. We're seeing a lot of electricity rates rise, of course, and we're also seeing time of use rates that people do not like. We have a lot of demand charges that we're able to mitigate and do away with those demand charges using solar and batteries. So I'm a battery fan now, Joe. I wasn't in the beginning, but their performance is fantastic. The lithium iron phosphate. If there's a new tech coming, great. I'm hopeful for sodium and some other things, but I just I think there's some other cool technologies. Fuel cell integration with solar is coming. Look forward to putting out a video on that soon. So there's always new tech, and I'm a sucker for that. So I think that solar's not going away, is my opinion.
No, I agree with that. I don't think solar is going away, especially for clients like yours who are motivated for reasons beyond just electric bill savings or tax savings. I mean, there's a real need for, and I think for certain people, real desire to just be as energy independent as possible. But the technology is shifting, like you said. You know, Scott, one thing that I'm concerned about, you know, just kind of putting my prepper hat back on, is as these systems get more smart and they get more internet connected, you know, how truly independent can these systems be in a world where maybe there is no internet service, there is no cell phone service? What are your thoughts on that? What do you say are the most secure solutions for a true grid down type of environment?
Yeah. So there's a lot of concern, and I think every company is working on internet security for their Wi-Fi dongles. Moving to a stateside servers and making sure the path of data doesn't go to some server in China and back. But the other thing is, you don't need to have it doesn't need to be connected to the internet. I still have an 8K that I installed in 2017 that has never been connected to the internet. So people need to realize that depending on the system, it does not need to be connected to the internet at all to function. So you can pull the Wi-Fi dongle off of any system that we have and you're still going to run. So, but if you want the monitoring, you want to be able to do updates. So I have a lot of, I don't want to say paranoid customers are like, I don't want to be connected to the internet. You do not need to be, you don't need to connect your battery. I love all the tech and the bells and whistles and the portals. So we have battery, monitoring portals. We have Sol-Ark portals. We have third-party solar assistant and all those kinds of things. So if you want to be high tech and connected, you can. If you want to be off the grid and not connected, you can. It doesn't change the performance of the system at all, from what I see.
Okay. Well, you mentioned that one of the things that you're doing now more on your projects is trying to stay outside the home as much as possible. Can you explain a little bit what's the motivation for that approach,
Yeah.
and how are you installing today? How is that different from how you were installing 1 or 2 years ago?
Yeah, it's tremendously different. So we see the NFPA 855 battery regulations and for safety, for fire, and NEC code. And so what we started to see was this 40 plus 80 plus 80 plus 80. And I'm like, what is that? So I'd ask questions at code classes. Nobody could explain it, but we knew that they were working on a way to limit the amount of battery you could have inside your home or inside your garage. And for most of my customers, that is a huge limitation. And so to have 40 kilowatt hours of battery is really not, it'll function. It's better than nothing, but it's not going to make the customer happy. So we started to think, how can we go outside the home, build a system where the solar's outside? I'm not, like I mentioned before, not ever walking inside the house other than to say hello to the customer. So our team, our install team, is not going in the house. We're not pulling wire. We're not running EMT. So we come to a home. We've done several like this recently where 10,000 square foot home, 400 amps, 600 amp services. If we can get a hold of the feeders that feed the panels inside this home, whether it's 2, 4, 6, 10 panels, we can then grab those feeders and build our system outside and even build it under the array. Say the solar array is way away from the home, 400 or 500, we've gone to 1,000 feet. And there is a break even, there's a cost calculation on, PV conductors, DC conductors versus AC conductors. Where's the optimum place to put your inverters and batteries? We put them in power sheds. And then now with the batteries being able to be outside, the inverters, NEMA 3R, NEMA 4R, we've gone outside. And I never thought I would do it because I didn't want to put this huge investment out in the weather. So we try to at least put it under an array or put it in a building. But being able to show up at a job, do all our trenching, ground mount building, inverters and batteries outside, it's kind of fun to be able to take that house. I call it hijacking the house. We don't ever go in that house, but that house, when we leave, is completely capable of being off grid. It still has grid support, still have generator integration. We go through basically the outside condensing units on the HVAC and put micro air soft starters on it. So it's kind of fun when we leave that we've never been inside the home. And now you have no power bill and you can run indefinitely off grid. So that's what I mean by going outside, because the reason for it has been just looking at this code structure coming, whether it's NEC 2023, I think they're working on 2026. it's going to greatly limit the amount of storage capacity. So we've gone outside, and then we've scaled it to our Luna vaults, which are shipping containers, 20-foot containers that you can give you a full 300 amp capacity continuous with large battery banks. But those are that's for giant residents and, businesses and stuff like that. But I still can't get into the C&I space. I'm so stuck in residential. Uh, I know a lot of people that are seeing the future of trying to shift over to C&I, but we have taken this approach to do whole home, and we can do it with a 15K and some off the shelf transfer switches and disconnects. We don't need any separate interface to do that. I'm not bragging. This is just spending 12 years doing this, just like, hey, let's try this. So my place where I live has become a lab, and where I have, I've got a lot of different inverters and Sol-Arks and batteries, and we're running three different homes and a business. And so I got a lot of R&D set up here to show that, hey, I just did my mother-in-law's house. I never went inside her home. She would have not wanted me there anyway. Just kidding. And but we went and we wired it up, and she's completely off grid and no power bill. So it's very rewarding to be able to do that. So I hope that makes sense of why we don't have to go inside a home to solarize it today.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Scott, I know you practice what you preach as far as living the off-grid lifestyle yourself. But that is something that we have reported on with a number of these products that have come out over the last few years. Franklin was probably the first one to market their solution as a whole home battery. Although in practice, you still needed multiple batteries to provide adequate backup for the whole home. But the idea was, if you can do your grid interconnection or your interface to the home system above the main breaker panel, then as the installer, you don't have to get into the weeds of moving around circuitry inside the house, which is very disruptive for the homeowner. Again, back in the days of critical loads panels, we had to rip out all the critical loads from the main panel, reroute those wires, install a second critical loads breaker panel somewhere in the house or in the garage. And that could be very disruptive. Also introduces a lot more risk for the contractor, because now you're dealing with modifying inside the house wiring, as opposed to the further up the chain you can go, the closer to where that service comes in from the utility, the less really risk there is. I mean, yes, you have to deal with larger gauge wire sizes because you're dealing with higher amperage circuits, but you're not dealing with the risk of the individual branch circuits. It's just, how are you feeding power into that home? Once you deliver power to the home's internal wiring takes care of distributing it out to the loads.
Yeah,
So
it is so much less electrical work, believe it or not. You're not doing that critical loads. You're not moving all those circuits. The only circuits we move, in a meter-based combo for a larger home, even 200 amp, they have meter-based combos with breakers outside for their well pumps, for their HVAC. We move those because those are on the grid bus. You can't run those. You got to hijack those. So we actually put another panel sometimes outside on our equipment that takes care of those loads. So we do move those from the grid. And so the biggest complaint I get is, I don't know that I'm off grid when the power goes out. And that's a great complaint. So sometimes we'll leave a breaker with a green light, LED, some sort of visual indicator. I really need to come up with some audible indicators that the grid is down, other than looking at their app and they see a white line said, oh, there's no grid. That is success for me, that people do not know that the grid went down. And we saw a lot of this in Helene, and because we were in the path of Hurricane Helene, so a lot of my customers were in that path. And so it was great for them to be able to plow through that for up to 2 weeks without having to. Yes, they used some generator if they were off grid, but they were able to be comfortable and take care of a lot of other people.
I'm sure. Now, Scott, I know you're based in South Carolina, as I am as well. Is your practice limited to the Carolinas, or where do you do projects today?
Yes. Thanks for asking. So yes, we're in South Carolina. We're licensed electrical contractors in South and North Carolina. So we do install in North Carolina. We install just about everywhere. I got jobs in Mississippi and Tennessee, and we'll work with other electricians and contractors, but we do a lot of design work where we hotshot complete jobs to people in California. So it's weird. Last year we did so many jobs in California. I guess I'm cheaper than the contractors in California, I guess. And so we would ship an entire system. We'd permit it. I don't care if it was Napa, Sonoma. We did one in LA, which was crazy. And so we can get the entire design and equipment sent to you and do the hand holding through the installation if you're a DIYer or if you're an electric. We have a lot of electricians wanting to get into solar. We've kind of helped them. So we've got systems all over the country, thankfully, which helps me. I get a lot of data from different climates, 9,000 feet in Wyoming and down in the desert in California. So so yeah, we are based in South Carolina, but we've got, we're working in Belize right now with customers. So we try to install, we have just enough, we have a small installation team, 4 or 5 guys. And so we do installations to keep so we're always in the game. We know we stay up with the latest technologies. But I never wanted to expand that. So we've expanded more of our consultation and design and shipping materials around the country type of work. And we have our own, kind of like you got teams of installers here and there. We have an installer list that if I can't go to Pennsylvania, I have an installer in Pennsylvania and for West Virginia, Maryland, so we will kick jobs to them that we cannot get to. The consultation service has been really good for us, and people can sign up and if they send me enough pictures and drone shots and videos, we design their system together and then we give them a quote. And then if they like it, we send them all the material.
That's great. I think there's going to be many more homeowners that choose to go this type of route as well, where maybe they work directly with a designer like you, purchase all the material, get it at a good competitive price without any of these fees and things, and then maybe just hire a roofer or an electrician or some help to put the system together on their end, but without having to hire one of these high-priced all-in-one solar contractors, which again may or may not be in business 5 or 10 years from now. And I think you're going to see many, many more people going that route. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have had people that's super talented, but they're intimidated by maybe the commissioning aspect of it. So we've had people where we've shipped them the material, they have built the system, and then we've gone to commission it or help their electrician commission the system. So sometimes it's just go build the ground mount because they're intimidated of that, but they're very good with electricity. So every customer is different. Some have really surprised me. I didn't think they were going to be able to pull it off. And they just built a beautiful system and share their videos and stuff with us. So we got a lot of nice testimonials of people that have built systems based on our design. So that's our focus. I could care less. I say this, my wife gets very upset when I say this. It's not about the money. It's about, does this thing work? It has to work. If it doesn't work, we failed. The money will follow.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. That actually is a good segue into what was going to be my next question. I made a prediction in one of my previous videos a couple of weeks ago that the firm fixed price per watt pricing model for solar is probably going to go away because it's especially when you talk about batteries and load control and all this other complexity, the contractor's got to have a way to manage the cost and the risk better than just throwing out, $5 a watt bid or something like that. I'm curious, how do you structure your bids or your quotes? Do you do time and materials, or how do you make sure that the business stays healthy at the end of the day, as well as, of course, making sure that these systems work?
Yeah, for us, we have never done a cost per watt, never on any job, which a lot of people think that's crazy because, as you said, that's the norm in the industry. We just, we have material markup, it's time and materials, and we have a labor rate. And then when we finish a job, did we do well on a job? We do a cost analysis of each job. Part of that cost analysis is to see how did we make any profit, and then I profit share with our install team because it is hard work, it's difficult. Got them out of town. So that's kind of a motivation for them to get the job done sooner than later. And so we kind of analyze that job by job. Here's all our materials. Here's how much time it took. Here's the labor. And then we find out, wow, we're getting killed and slaughtered on our permits, or it's expensive. They never charged as much for a permit before. So we have to stay up with analyzing. Are we making money? Are we going to stay in business? Because that's constantly moving target. So I just go back and analyze each project just pull up a spreadsheet, just dump everything we spent on the project. Did we make a profit or not? And then is the install team happy as well? And so, but never on a cost per watt. So it's I've just never been able to do that in a way that made sense to me. And I do get a lot of what I call carcasses. People will send me quotes from other solar companies, and I'm just blown away. We're not the cheapest. We're not the most expensive. I see incredibly, gouging, crazy quotes from people. I don't know how they do that. We're kind of in the middle, I would say, in terms, you learn a lot from what other people are doing. If I can get my hands on some other quotes, it's kind of fun to make adjustments like, man, Scott, you are really blowing it on the ground mount. You're not charging enough, or you're charging too much on another area.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that too. I think a time and materials type structure makes more sense. Have your labor rate, have your material cost, a little bit of markup on the materials. At the end of the day, a client that values you and your expertise wants you to make some profit, right? And otherwise, you're not going to be in business long term.
Nope.
And I think, of course, for somebody like yourself, you've built such a reputation over the years that, would you say that most clients that end up working with you, they have known you for some time, or are they just in the solar shopping process and just happen to come across you?
Yeah, most of them have watched too many of my videos. So I tell people, if you're having a hard time falling asleep, just watch an Engineer 775 video and put you right out. But for people that really want solar, they will plow through it, and they're like really learning. And so I get a lot of customers that have watched a lot of my videos. So they say, I feel like I know you. I feel like I trust you. And so that's great. So I have no idea, and I have no idea where they're coming in from. So the YouTube has been fantastic for that. Has been, without YouTube, we wouldn't have a business like we do. Our local utility seemingly is not pro solar, so we've had to reach out. We in a co-op in South Carolina, they're not really pro solar, so which are most of the co-ops, which are most of the utilities. So without having social media, being able to reach out like you do, there wouldn't be much of a business.
Yeah, well, it's so valuable, especially for what you do, because you have such a unique skill set and such a unique focus. You have an audience that I would imagine, because I know I used to watch your videos. I watch off-grid water heating techniques and things from 10 years ago. So I would imagine by the time I pick up the phone to do business with you, you've already got a certain level of trust there with your clients, which is invaluable. So you solar installers out there figuring out how to reposition your business for success after this tax credit goes away. One great way to do that is to start documenting your installations and your processes in video, and start showing your potential clients how it is you do what you do, so that you're not just another solar company putting out a bid. You're somebody that they somewhat know and trust, and they can see that you've done what they're looking to do in the past. And of course, Scott is an excellent example of that. Inspired me to start, my YouTube channel back in 2018.
Wow, 2018, huh? Yeah, I think 2009 is when I started, when Google, before Google got YouTube. So I just, and in one way, the YouTube channel has just it's been my accountability partner. It's like, oh no, I got a video. You know how much work it is. You produce 20 times more videos than I do, but it's a lot of work, and you're accountable. You're putting your work out there, so everybody, is an armchair quarterback critiquing and blasting you, and it's sometimes you got to resist fighting with the trolls on YouTube. But it's been an amazing thing, because I'm like, I have got to produce a video this. And so I tell other people, I said, like you said, just start videoing your work. It holds you accountable. You're going to be sharing it publicly, and give it a couple years. Don't give up. I see most people that have asked me, how do you get YouTube going? I said, it takes years. So you have to just plow. But people go back, as people go back and watch old videos, and they're still monetized. It's fun. I find YouTube to be very rewarding. It's a lot of work, but it's rewarding. And so I don't know how many videos do you put out a week?
Well, now we do 3 or 4 videos a week, plus the shorts. But it wasn't always like this. I mean, when we started, it was very low budget. It was somebody with an iPhone or somebody with a handheld camera that would just follow us to the install site, and I would just kind of talk through what we were doing that day. So it doesn't have to be this overproduced thing. Obviously now we have a bit of a studio set up here, and I do a lot of the recordings right here. But, you can get started with the cell phone you already have, a couple $20, $30 microphones from Amazon, and you're in the game, right? YouTube doesn't charge you to get started, so you can get in the game at a very low cost, and then as you start getting more traction, of course, you can invest more into the production of it.
That's where, I mean, this is my YouTube channel, folks. I do all my videos are on my phone, which you can tell by the poor quality. But we always said it's about the content, and I'm like, oh no, it's the end of the day. We're hot, and like I got to shoot something, but it's usually on my phone. Yes, I use a drone occasionally, but it is all cell phone and maybe a GoPro footage if I have the time. But I used to have a USB horrible camera, and I used, the biggest comment I got on my YouTube videos is like, "You are making me sick." Just not being able to follow everything. So we've made some improvements. We're not as sophisticated as you are, Joe, but we need to improve in that area.
Yeah, well, we're still a pretty low budget operation here as far as the camera equipment we have. But I know for the first year, or no, I told myself 25,000 subscribers. I think it was not until I had 25,000 subscribers was I going to buy a real YouTube camera. I was just going to use my phone, which I already paid for it. So,
Right.
you can definitely ease your way into it. Well, Scott, I know we're getting close to the top of the hour here, and certainly would like for you to be able to share with the audience, what is your outlook on where does the solar industry, particularly the off-grid battery-based prepper part of the solar community, what is this going to look like in 2026 and beyond?
Yeah, I'm hoping that part that you just mentioned is never going to go away, that might increase for us that do that kind of work. It's definitely going to take a dip, I see, because of the ITC going away. And but I think if people realized what the solar can do for them, that they would have a different mindset. Again, there's no critical loads. It's your whole house. It's the whole house. It is so nice. And once you experience your first outage or two, and you didn't even know you had an outage or two, you're pretty happy. So I like to say most of my customers are very happy with their systems. They perform well. If they don't, we're going to go figure out why and fix it, because we've had bad products that we've had to replace and fix. I won't name those names, but I think the off-grid market is here to stay. I don't think solar's going away, but it's going to be hard if the model was for your company, solar financing and rooftop solar and doing critical loads panels. I don't know. So I don't have the crystal ball. We're trying to position ourselves. This is one of the reasons wanting to talk to you, to get out there and let people know again how we do solar is different than what I see. I see a lot of manufacturers talking about solar, and they haven't installed solar either in their life, or they installed solar when they were a teenager or a long time ago. The installation game is different. So it worries me that products are being made based on some theory and not reality that's in the field. So that's what I want to try to communicate to people, that solar is so much more capable than they might think. They'll be surprised, because we go to a place, sometimes we retire meters. We're getting rid of, some homes have multiple meters, 2 meters, sometimes 3. Wouldn't it be nice to not have that minimum $30 to $40 bill? We get rid of the meter. We subfeed that other shop and that other building. So there's a lot of things I think people don't understand. And it's simpler. The architecture, the layout of the system, the design has been simplified, believe it or not, compared to what it used to be. And people they come to you like, I've been studying this and I've figured this out. And I'm like, by the time we get done with the consultation, it is not what they thought. And we give them a design that's much better and more capable than they ever imagined. And that's fun. And don't forget the HVAC. That's a big thing. Those soft starters, if you haven't used those changed a lot in our installation, being able to start multiple heat pumps. And, we're in South Carolina, so the happiest customers are the cool customers right now. I think it was the hottest temperature in 8 years yesterday. So
yeah, it was really, really hot and muggy here, which we usually don't get much humidity here, but it was in the 90s and it felt like the dog days of summer. Hey, Scott, while we have a little bit more time, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you? I know you have the Engineer 775 YouTube channel, but what's the best way for folks if they want to work with you to reach out?
Yeah, so we have a website, practicalpreppers.com. We've had it for years. There's a consultation service you can sign up for if you go to the website. Email is practicalpreppers@gmail.com. Keep it simple there. And, so of course the YouTube channel, Engineer 775, and we're on every social media from TikTok to LinkedIn to you name it. We kind of cut and paste our content and put it around on the different social medias. So a lot of different ways to get a hold of me. If you want my undivided attention, the consultation service works really well. We do a 1 hour consultation, but we get a lot of prep for that. It's not just meeting you for the first time. You are sending pictures and ideas and your plans into a Dropbox folder that's between you and I. And then we can get to work and design you a system. So we got enough systems out there. I usually like, oh, he's like that guy, or it's like the one I did up in North Dakota, or it's very similar. So it's nice that we have a database of designs that we pull from, and we have some fun projects too. Things like sailboats with inverters on them, and crazy projects on the islands, and a lot of bunkers and things that are not normal. Always got to have a lot of the not normal there too. So we like to think out of the box when it comes to making electricity.
That's great. Well, folks, this has been a chat with Scott Hunt. Again, he is the co-founder or the founder of Practical Preppers, and of course has the Engineer 775 YouTube channel. He is an expert when it comes to off-grid and battery-based systems. So go look him up if you're looking to do a project. And again, I think a lot more folks are going to choose to go this route where they work with an expert like yourself, design the system, get all the equipment, and then maybe bring in some help from an electrician as needed to help round out the system, as opposed to going to your local solar company, which may or may not be here, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. So, Scott, anything else that the audience should know about solar, off-grid preparedness? I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah, I just tell people it works, and I'm fine being challenged, And I also put out invites to come see it because I have fun showing everybody how it works and the different ways in which solar can be a great solution for you. So don't worry about that ITC. Come check us out.
Sounds good. Well, folks, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for spending some more time on the Solar Surge channel. And as always, I'm Joe Ordia here, encouraging you to get prepared and be empowered. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.